One of the most common questions I've ever gotten on my channel is in regards to getting a visa to come and visit China. In the past, this could be a very convoluted and even difficult process, requiring many specific steps to achieve. However, China is going out of its way to make visa free entry available to more and more countries and make the process itself much, much easier. Let's talk about it. 大家好，我是 Surant 在中国. Hey everyone, it's Surant in China. How y'all doing today? I hope you're having a fantastic day. I'm having a great day over here in Shenzhen, even though it is smoking hot. At least I've got all of my fantastic viewers are helping so much to support the channel. You can do so by either hitting that subscribe button below, and if you like the content, throw me a thumbs up. You could become a channel member, or you could buy me a cup of coffee. That's all up to you. 谢谢你们. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And hey, if you've got a few minutes, go check out my other channel. I've got new content coming out every day from my latest trips around smaller tier 4 cities in China. It's a lot of fun. But for now, let's get to today's topic. Now, as I mentioned, one of the most common questions I've ever gotten on my channel is in regards to visas. And it used to be quite difficult, so I do understand why people are curious. However, it is getting easier and easier for people to come and visit China. And a lot of this is due to things like the Little Red Book revolution, where due to the TikTok ban in America, a lot more people open their eyes and open their hearts to what life is really like in China by either watching videos from Chinese people on other media sources or watching videos like mine about expats and visitors to China who are showing what life is really like here at the ground level. So people want to see for themselves, and this is fantastic news as it's going to help to dispel a lot of the generational misinformation that has been spread by Western governments and media sources. Another very important reason for increasing these visa-free policies is after the slowdown of the global economy from COVID-19, countries and China in particular really want to increase business again and get back up to pre-COVID levels and beyond. To do this, they want more and more business people coming here, not only just to look for products on Alibaba and online sources, but to be able to come and visit factories and see products with their own eyes, hold them in their hands, and make educated decisions to do business in China. Both of these industries, tourism and the manufacturing industry, could represent a massive increase in GDP and revenue for China. So they are trying to make it easier than ever before for people from around the world to be able to come and see for themselves. So let's take a look right now at a video that just came out from CCTV talking about one of the most recent changes.
为进一步便利中外人员往来，中方决定扩大免签国家范围，自2025年6月1日起至2026年5月31日，对巴西、阿根廷、智利、秘鲁、乌拉圭持普通护照人员实行免签政策。上述5国持普通护照人员来华经商、旅游观光、探亲访友、交流访问、过境不超过30天，可免办签证入境。中方将坚持高水平对外开放，出台更多措施，不断提升中外人员往来便利化的水平。我们也欢迎更多外国朋友们用好来华免签和签证便利化政策，多到中国走一走、看一看，体验多彩绚烂、热情活力的中国。
So we can see from this video that the regulations have just changed for 5 South American countries. People from these countries with just a standard passport can come to China for 30 days, whether for tourism or business or whatever they want to do really, as long as they have a valid passport. A visa is no longer necessary. Now, one thing to keep in mind is when it says regular passport holders, there is another stipulation you do need to keep in mind. The general rule is you need to have 6 months of validity left on your passport before you come. Now, this is important. If you came to China and only had 1 month or 2 months of validity left on your passport, they could possibly deny you entry at the border. So it is very important to have a valid passport for at least 6 months. And if not, double check, triple check with the consulate, with the travel agencies, with whoever is selling you those tickets before you hop on a plane. Because, like I said, you don't want to make that flight from Brazil to China, which is a very long flight, and then find out that you can't get in. But let's take a look now at some of the other visa free policies which are going on in the world right now and whether or not you are qualified for them. Countries with visa-free entry to China for 30 days. Citizens of the following countries can enter China visa-free for up to 30 days, for purposes including business, tourism, family visits, exchanges, or transit. This includes countries under China's unilateral visa-free policy, effective until December 31st, 2025, unless extended, and mutual visa exemption agreements. Now, I honestly do believe that this policy not only will be extended, but I suspect they will be adding more and more countries to this list. At present, it only includes 38 countries, and as you may notice, Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom are not on this list. I suspect this is primarily due to political and economic reasons. Another thing travelers wanting to use this visa free policy should consider is that they may also be required to show itineraries of where they will be staying, contact numbers and names of people they will be staying with or doing business with, and flight information about when they will be arriving and confirmation of when they will be leaving. As this is a visa free policy, they will still likely want more information. So it's a good idea to have that prepared. And once again, make sure you at least have 6 months validity left on your passport. Now, when it comes to the mutual visa exemption agreements for a 30-day stay, Singapore, Thailand, Georgia, Solomon Islands, and Uzbekistan have mutual visa free policies. So not only can citizens from those countries go to China with the same conditions as the other 38, but Chinese citizens can in return also go to those countries without requiring a visa, which is really quite nice. Now, as you can see, in some cases, there is a maximum of 90 days within a 180-day period. So this is something to keep in mind. In the past, especially in Thailand, a lot of teachers would work for companies that either didn't want to process work visas or the teachers themselves didn't have the technical requirements to become teachers legally and get a work visa. So what they would do is they would do what was called the visa run, where every 30 days they would go to the border of Thailand and some other neighboring country, cross the border, get a new stamp, and come back in as a tourist again for 30 days. This allowed them to stay long term in the country, whether for work or pleasure, business, whatever, without the actual legal paperwork, making it illegal. So, in this way, by making a maximum of 90 days in a 180-day period, this limits the amount of people that would be able to abuse the system and stay long term in these countries without the proper paperwork. But for most people, this won't be an issue. Now, Hainan province is a little different story. Hainan province visa-free entry is extended to 59 countries for up to 30 days. Citizens of the following countries can enter Hainan province visa-free for up to 30 days for tourism, business, or other non-work or study purposes, provided they enter through open ports in Hainan and stay within the province. So this time, it's 59 countries, substantially more, including Canada, the United Kingdom, and the United States. And the reason for this is simple. Hainan province is an island. It is not directly connected to the Chinese mainland. So tourism is its only real industry. There is a little bit of agriculture, but tourism is the big one. They call Hainan the Chinese Hawaii. And as such, tourism is the biggest part of its revenue source. So they want to make it as easy as possible for tourists to come. By making this a 30-day exemption area, it will allow many, many more travelers to come so much more easily. And as it is not directly connected to the mainland, there is much less of a risk of illegal immigration by people disappearing off into the woodworks. Hainan is not that big a place. It's not going to be very easy to disappear on Hainan Island. There are also some other additional policies, which we discussed at the beginning of the video, meaning that Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru, and Uruguay from South America now have 30-day visa exemptions as well, as long as they have a valid passport. Now, there are some notes, of course. The unilateral policy applies to ordinary passport holders for business, tourism, family visits, exchanges, or transit. Hainan's policy requires reporting travel details to a local travel agency 48 hours before arrival and restricts travel to Hainan province. So, as this is a visa free zone, you will be required to report your itineraries and flight information to a local travel agency before you come to make sure that you're not planning anything like traveling outside of the island, being the province of Hainan. For Thailand, Georgia, Solomon Islands, the cumulative stay must not exceed 90 days within 180 days, as we discussed. And activities like work, study, or journalism still require a visa, even for eligible countries. The only time I could really see that is perhaps if you were coming to take a 20-day course in China, or if you worked abroad and came to China very frequently back and forth. You couldn't just keep using this 30-day exemption over and over and over again. You would at some point have to apply for a proper visa for journalism, study, work, etc. This is not the purpose of these exemptions. Now, this brings us to countries with visa free transit to China for 240 hours, which is 10 days. Why they didn't just say 10 days, I don't know, but it's for 240 hours. And this is a tricky one. Citizens of the following 54 countries are eligible for a 240-hour visa-free transit, approximately 10 days, when transiting through designated Chinese cities and airports, provided they have a valid onward ticket to a third country or region and meet other conditions, for example, entering and exiting through specific ports. Eligible ports include cities like Xi'an, Guilin, Chongqing, Chengdu, and others with a 240-hour transit policy. Now, as you can see here, the list is substantially longer for this 10-day visa exemption, including Canada, the United Kingdom, and the United States. However, there are very specific stipulations about this visa. The 240-hour transit policy applies to passengers with a confirmed onward ticket to a third country or region. For example, flying from the USA to China to Japan, no problem. Flying from the USA to China back to the USA, big problem. That is not a transit visa, that is a tourist visa. Therefore, no exceptions. You would need to get a tourist visa to do that trip. Now, the only time that I could really see this being very, very helpful is, for example, if you had business or were taking a vacation in Tokyo and you lived in Toronto. Now, there may be direct flights from Toronto to Japan, but I would guess that they would be much more expensive than a flight with a layover in, say, Beijing or Shanghai. So if you were going to be flying all the way to the other side of the planet, wouldn't it make sense to stay a few days extra in Shanghai or Beijing, see the local scenery, try the local foods, get a little mini vacation in for up to 10 days before continuing your flight to Tokyo? Since you're going to be on that side of the world anyway, that would make perfect sense. And that's what I personally would want to do. Also, as a very, very poor flyer, I can't sleep on any moving vehicles, whether it's a car, a train, or a plane. So if it's an extended flight, 20 hours sometimes, I'm not going to sleep for that entire period. So by the time I got from Toronto to Japan, I would be a wreck. It would be so nice to be able to stay for a few days in Shanghai and recover from the flight, get over some of the jet lag before I went to my very important business meeting. I think that would make the business meeting not only easier, but a lot more successful. So in those type of scenarios where you have a layover in China, it would make perfect sense to want to extend that layover, and that's exactly what this visa exemption will do. But it is not a 10-day tourist exemption. You cannot just fly and then come to China for 10 days and go home. That's not allowed. Travelers must enter and exit through designated ports. For example, Xi'an Shenyang International Airport or Guilin Liangjiang International Airport, etc. It is not a free pass to fly and go anywhere you want in China. It is very, very specific. So you would need to check a list of locations that you can fly in and out of. You cannot simply fly into any airport you want and then fly out of any other airport you want. It is very, very specific, so do some research before you go. I'm not going to list all of those airports and areas here, but if this is something that affects you, it would certainly be worth looking into. The stay is limited to specific administrative areas. As I was saying, if you're flying into Xi'an City, that is where you're going to be in Shanxi province. It's not an open invitation to fly into one location and travel around anywhere else you want to go to. You are limited to that area. Travelers must apply for a temporary entry permit upon arrival and may need to show proof of onward travel, hotel bookings, and other documents. I would say not may need to show. I would say definitely need to show. So once you arrive on this 10-day, 240-hour visa exemption, you will need to show your airline tickets proving that you are leaving and when you are leaving, hotel bookings, where you are staying and how long you're staying, and any other related documents. For example, if you are visiting a business partner, etc. They will require that information upon arrival in order to give you the temporary entry permit, allowing you to stay for up to 10 days. The policy is for transit only. Activities like work or study are not permitted. So if you are flying through China for a short period of time, this could be a great way to extend your trip since, like I said, if you're going to be on this side of the world anyway, why not take advantage of it and get 10 days in wherever you can? But it is very specific and has a lot of very, very strict rules that go with it. So do your homework and have everything ready before you come, because the last thing you want to do is fly all the way to China only to be turned away at the last second. And this, of course, brings us to the last little category here, which is general notes. If we look at this, we'll see top of the list, the most important one is verification. I say this in every single one of my videos where I talk about visas, but policies can and do change, and they can change overnight. Be very, very certain to check with Chinese embassies, consulates, or www.visaforchina.cn for any updates or changes to visa policies before you come. It's a good idea to check the policies when you start planning your trip, and it's also a good idea to double check or even triple check right before you come, because the last thing you want to do is fly across the planet and then be met with disappointment. Exclusions. Visa free entry does not cover activities requiring special permits. Working, studying, or journalism of any kind does require special permits, and you could be turned away if it is determined that you are coming to China for those purposes and trying to use a visa free exemption to do so. Supporting documents. This is also very important. Carry proof of your purpose, whether that's a hotel booking, onward tickets for your next flight or your return flight, invitation letters, phone numbers of the hotels, the people you're there to see, the businesses that you are there to talk to, etc. This is all very important. Now, it may be that you're not asked for this information at the border, but it is always better to be prepared just in case. And lastly, regional restrictions. Hainan's 30-day policy is very province specific. The 240-hour transit policy is limited to designated cities and airports only. So there you go. This is just a little insight into the visa exemption policy over here in China and how it's expanding rapidly to include more and more countries and make it easier for people around the world to experience not only tourism and life in China, but to increase business potential as well. So, what do you think? Do you see yourself ever using the visa exempt policy to come and visit China? Or would you prefer to go the more traditional route and get a proper tourist visa or business visa? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And of course, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to ask them below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But thank you so much for joining me today, everyone, and we will see you in the next video. Zai Chen.